see the fish. Hey guys, this is Hilbert with Anglers Covey, and welcome to Bug of the Month for the month of May, where we're going to be talking about caddis. We're here on the Arkansas River here this afternoon, and going to go see if we can find some caddis. So first of all, what is a caddis? A caddis is an insect as an adult that often looks like a really small moth. As a larva, it looks a lot like a small worm. They're found in not just rivers, but in lakes also. They have several different stages that we need to imitate as an angler, from the larva stage up until the adult. The first I'll talk about is the larva. Caddis are unique that based on the subspecies, they can be a really small, green, tan, cream-colored, rust-colored, worm-like, caterpillar-looking bug. The larva can look a lot like a small caterpillar in many different colors. Today we are finding them mostly in tan, and the caddis, depending on the subspecies, will either be a free-living larva that you can find crawling around on a rock, or they can be a case builder. Oftentimes you can flip under a rock and see all these long tube-like looking cases. Those are caddis that have built themselves into a small case, and they produce a silk that as they chew up little pieces of stick or stone, they build a case around themselves to protect themselves. They're also very migratory. Oftentimes you can see them free drifting in the current as they move from one space to another to feed. They can also end up in what's called a catastrophic drift, where during high flows, especially in the springtime like now when runoff starts, a lot of case caddis and caddis larvae both get washed down and are an easy food source for the trout. Today we're seeing a lot of case caddis, most in a variety of sizes, really as small as an 18 or 20 and as big as a 10. So the larva is present in the river year-round. You can find caddis larvae in every single month of the year living in the water. Once the larva reaches maturity, which happens, really in two main times of the year. The springtime, beginning of May, we see a big influx of caddis in our waters here in Colorado, often referred to as the Mother's Day caddis hatch, and then again in the fall. But you can find caddis hatches sporadically throughout the entire summer, and trout definitely know what they are. When the larva reaches maturity, they'll pupate, and as they swim towards the surface, their abdomen fills kind of a gaseous bubble that'll have almost a glow about it, and this is what helps project them up towards the surface. When they reach the surface, the adult emerges just like a mayfly would, and they climb out up onto the surface film, let their wings dry, and fly away to mate. Now, unlike a mayfly that is going to mate, lay their eggs, and die within a few hours, caddis, they're multiple brood insects, so they can breed and lay eggs multiple times over a matter of weeks. And oftentimes when the adults hatch, they'll hang out on the banks and crawl around in the brush and wait until the cover of darkness, and a lot of their mating and egg laying practice is going to happen in the evening time. Part of the reason we're out here today a little later in the day. Once the adults mate, the female will return to the water and to lay her eggs. And they do this depending on the subspecies in a couple of different ways. Most common, you've probably been out and seen caddis on the water doing the flutter and dropping down right on the surface. Every time she's hitting the surface, she's depositing eggs that will sink down to the bottom and start the cycle over again. A lot of caddis are divers and will project themselves down into the water, which they capture a lot of air bubbles around their wings and legs as they swim down to the bottom to lay their eggs. And this air allows them to breathe, and they're very shiny. Trout really key in on the divers. Part of the reason I'm so in love with Gallup's diving caddis, which we'll show you in our tying tutorial, I use a white wing, and this really helps imitate that air bubbles trapped on the wing as it dives. They can also land on the bank, rocks, sticks, and brush, and crawl their way down into the water to lay their eggs and enter the water in a variety of ways. So a common question I get a lot is, I walk out to the river, it's caddis season, what do I tie on? How do I know what stage of the life cycle the caddis is at during that time of day? If you know what to look for, it can be really simple. A good starting point anytime throughout the day is to start with a larva. The larvae are always in the water. Trout will opportunistically eat them, and so anytime you're not sure, I definitely recommend tying on your favorite larva pattern. Take a seine, flip over some rocks, look at the size and color of the larva in the river, and go to your fly box and pick out the closest representation that you might have. One thing I'll look for if the trout are feeding on pupa is I'll look out into the riffle or likely trout habitat, and I'll just watch for a little while. Oftentimes you'll see a flash periodically down, a couple feet under the surface, mid-column, or even down on the bottom. This is a good indication that trout are eating the pupas as they're swimming their way up to the surface. Trout will very aggressively feed on these and oftentimes move several feet to intercept one of the pupa. So anytime you're out and you're looking in the water and you see flashes that are happening mid-column or really anywhere in the water, just under the surface, it's a good bet that they're eating pupa, and I recommend tying on your favorite pupa pattern. My personal favorite is going to be Gary LaFontaine's Sparkle Pupa. It's been a tried and true, very confident pattern for me. And then obviously, if you see trout rising and coming up to the surface, it's a good bet that they're eating the adult. Oftentimes, they attack the adult on the surface. It's not a very slow, itty-bitty sip like you will see on a mayfly. Usually they're blowing up on that thing and very aggressively eating it. One small detail I'll add in there, if you're watching those fish come up and you're not seeing their mouth come out, but you're just seeing their back or their tail, they're probably eating the divers or the pupa that are just under the surface. So a lot of times I'll rig my dry or my adult. Most of the time I'm using an X-Caddis, and 5 or 6 inches off of that I'll put a sparkle pupa or a gallop diving caddis just underneath there, real short, maybe 5 or 6 inches, and I would say over half the time they're eating that dropper. You'll see just a big boil right where your dry was, thinking he ate the dry. You get him in the net and you'll see he's right on that dropper, taking the easier meal. When selecting a larva pattern, there are several options to choose from. I recommend picking one that you have the most confidence in. I'm a big believer in confidence. I think confidence trumps anything else. If you're new to the sport and not sure, head into the shop and ask anybody working there what their favorite is. It's likely that that's a producer. I'll oftentimes just let the river tell me what I need to tie on. Like we did today, we turned over some rocks, we took a seine, and we saw that most of the larvae in here were a tan or cream color, ranging in size from as small as an 18 and as big as a 14. That's going to cover most of your bases. We can see caddis at different times of the year as small as a 20 or as big as a 10, but often let the river tell you what you need to tie on. When it comes to selecting an adult imitation, I'm a big fan of the X-Caddis, but there's several good imitations. Again, go with what you're most confident in. Carry a wide variety. As our caddis, especially here in Colorado, they can be as small as a 20 or as big as a 10, range in several different colors, from a tan to an olive to a black, dark brown, cream colored, bright green. There's a wide variety of colors, and it's important to carry a wide variety of colors and sizes in your box. You don't want to be stuck out on the river with just one size, one color, while they're eating something else and you're watching them feed voraciously, and you're going to be kind of out of luck. So definitely carry a wide variety of colors and sizes for all the imitations in your box. I would say my caddis box is the most diverse and widespread out of all the different flies that I try to imitate for any species of insect. Now that we've talked about what caddis are and what they look like, we're going to head down to the river and see if we can find some trout feeding on caddis. So all we did here is we just picked up a rock that was sitting in some fascia water, and you can see all these little tube-like structures. These are all case caddis. If you look really close, you can see its head sticking out. This guy, you can see his legs are hanging out a little bit, hanging onto the rock there. These are all like a size 16 to 18. But lots of case caddis in here. There's a little bit bigger one. You can see he's poking out a little bit. Here's a larva. Kind of a tan color. Rolled up, seeing a few caddis flying around already. Just walking up to this first spot here, and you know, the caddis hatch hasn't really started yet, and so I'm going to give them a couple of different options just to see maybe what they're keying in on. So we're going to start out with the nymphing rig here, and the way I like to set this up is I use a drop shot system where my weighted fly is actually on the bottom. In this case, it's going to be a jig hook to imitate a case caddis, and it has a tungsten bead, kind of a green collar hot spot. Ton of case caddis in here. Trout really key in on them. Good little searching pattern for before the hatch starts. Above that case caddis, I have my 2 tag ends with unweighted flies on them, and I separate those by about 10 to 12 inches. And in the middle there, you'll see I have that caddis larva, and up top a sparkle pupa for my emerger. I'm gonna run these below an indicator and just do some searching here in this run and see if we can find some fish that are feeding on caddis. So starting out here, I'm gonna work in pretty close proximity. I'm a big believer in short controlled drifts as opposed to casting all the way across the river and trying to get a big long drift. This little piece of water here, I'm gonna start pretty close. And I'm just going to get some short drifts behind this structure here, working those caddis imitations right behind this rock. I like to work this almost like a grid. I think of the river as a big chessboard, and I want to pass my indicator through every square on the board. So I'll oftentimes start close, and every cast work out just a little bit further. Now it's early afternoon here. We're seeing a few caddis fly around, so I'm going to cover all my bases and fish a larva and a pupa starting out, and let the fish really tell me what it is they want to eat. Very important anytime you're nymphing, whether it's with caddis or any type of nymph, to really watch your bobber very intently. And I'm a big believer in setting the hook often. Trout's full-time job is to eat, and they're very good at it. They know right away when they eat my flies that are made of iron and not squishy like a bug, and they spit them out really quick. So anytime my bobber hesitates, pauses, twitches, does anything besides drift downstream, I'm going to set the hook on them. Just looking for a nice drag-free drift in here, letting those larva imitations drift down near the bottom. There we go. Got took our little larva here. So we were fishing this really beautiful fishy looking seam, hooked a nice fish, and he ran me right up into this stick pile and got my fly stuck in there and broke me off. So happens to the best of us. Just got to shake it off, get back out there. That fish, he ate that LaFontaine sparkle pupa. So we're gonna go right back to the well on that one. Find some fish. In this run, we got a few caddis coming up. So I'm fishing a pupa and Gallup's diving caddis. Sometimes what I'll do in this slower type water is kind of twitch my indicator a little bit to give some movement to those flies. Make it look like they're a struggling caddis moving through the water. Oh, he ate that diver. Dude. I'm like, how is there not a fish right here? So it's evening time here. We're starting to see a few adults coming up off the water, flutter around. Haven't really seen any risers yet, but we're gonna see if we can get one to come up. Want to talk about how I like to set up for fishing dry flies for caddis. I'm gonna start with a size 16X caddis. Super confident in this pattern. Caddis we're seeing are about a size 16, and then off of that I'm going to drop that Gallup's diving caddis about 6 inches below it. This is a great representation of the diver, very reflective, sparkly wing to imitate those air bubbles that get captured on the wing as it dives. A lot of confidence in this setup, and probably how I fish dries for caddis. Oh, I would say 90% of the time, this is my setup. Let's see if we can do it! You! Probably just saw, I whiffed real bad. Had a nice fish come up, eat my caddis, scared me half to death. I bass set him, broke him off. Well, we tried to get another one to come up and eat the dry fly with no success. It got too dark on us and we couldn't see anymore. So that concludes our Bug of the Month on the Water series. Be sure to tune in to the fly time portion coming up here shortly. Thanks for watching.